children can't afford to live anywhere. Nowhere. There's nowhere to go. Once again, why? You said it, the rent is too damn high.
Santa Cruz, California is a destination spot. So many people with high-paying jobs in Silicon Valley and San Jose choose to live here. The university is bringing in way too many students to band-aid their spiraling debt, and rather than directing their funding to provide for students' basic needs, they're filling George Blumenthal's pockets with over $400,000 for his retirement pension. So, there is physically not enough space for the thousands of admitted students coming in, and the space that is available is being marked up by landlords who know that there are people in the area who can and will accept the price, whatever it may be. There are many factors involved in rising rents, but some of the main ones are venture capital investments, risky investments with high return possibilities. These include investments in startups or companies like Uber and Airbnb by people who already have a lot of money that are trying to make more money. Zumper did a study which found that for every $1 billion in venture capital injected into a local economy, one-bedroom rents will increase by $69 per month, and two-bedroom rents will increase $99 per month. This adds up, and when considering the massive scale of these investments in cities like San Francisco, San Jose, Boston, and New York, major technology hubs, you can really see the difference.
My experience renting in Santa Cruz has been kind of hectic. I've lived in multiple places where things have been broken and landlords have shown no intention of fixing them. I've lived in places with just way too many people per house for way too much money. I've yet to find a place that's affordable and I don't have to compromise too much to live there. A friend of mine recently, their landlord just decided to raise the rent $100 just on a whim. And it's like these things add up. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. I definitely need to be working at least 30 hours a week to make sure that my rent is paid and my other expenses are covered. And being a full-time student, that's a lot of hours to be putting in, but it's what I have to do to live in Santa Cruz. I know people that have had to partition out parts of their living room and even their kitchen to rent it to people because they need more people in the house to pay the rent. I mean, it's just we shouldn't be having to live like that, just to have a roof over our head.
So I grew up with this knowledge that renting in this town was hard. But I thought if I worked and got an education and, got a stable job with the city, I'd be able to make it. I'd be able to, figure stuff out, find the good rentals, find the good landlords, and that's not turning out to be the case.
When I look at Craigslist and I see what market value is, there's no way I could live here. If it hadn't been for the connections I have made over these last 20 plus years, knowing people who own properties and who are willing to rent out garages and do what it takes to continue living here, I could not afford it. There's no question at all.
In the past 2 years, 8 months that I've worked for the city, I've had to move 3 different times. My lease came up the same time the rent freeze ordinance went in. I got a letter from my landlord the day the rent freeze took effect, telling me that he was issuing me a 10% rent increase, which was no longer legal. So I informed him that it was no longer legal, and it's been a war with him ever since. He researched it, came back, and then said, "You're right, I can't raise it 10%. I'm going to raise it the 1 point something that I can. And I'm not going to renew your lease for another year, even though there haven't been any problems. I'm just going to put you on a month-to-month." So I was hoping Measure M would pass so that something would happen to save me from the giant rent increase I knew was coming. And when it didn't pass, I was just waiting for another letter or something from my landlord. I got it day before Thanksgiving. And where again, he's trying to increase it another 9%, which would be the maximum 10% he's allowed. And it's going to pretty much push me out of my apartment. And I think he wants to do that.
Housing has been commodified, and profit has been prioritized over people's basic needs and human rights. Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care. This human right is being systemically abused. Speculation on housing and land is the key factor to what is driving our housing crisis, which is forcing people into unsafe living situations and displacing people and their families every day. It's a new form of colonialism driven by capitalism and gentrification.
My landlord told me, Cameron, you don't know how lucky you are, and threatened me one time like that.
He just wants as much money as he can for the rental. He doesn't care who's there. He doesn't care how good a tenant you are.
Students and Santa Cruz community members came together in solidarity this year in support of Measure M, the rent control bill on the Santa Cruz ballot for this year's midterm elections.
Yes, on M!
Measure M was written by tenants for tenants and had 3 parts: just cause for eviction, rent price stabilization, and a rent board that would benefit both landlords and tenants, providing a system of accountability. Despite the energy supporters put into this campaign, Measure M did not pass this year. The opposition campaign was backed by thousands of dollars, which made this fight anything but fair.
I didn't really feel comfortable putting up a sign, although I really wanted to. The opposition, it just felt too threatening. I didn't want to provoke anything. And the propaganda that was sort of delivered.
Yeah, I'm opposed to Measure M because it's going to squeeze out a lot of working class people and create a lot of gentrification.
It makes me fucking emotional just thinking about it.
The current rent freeze is ending on December 11th, 2018, and we will likely see mass evictions, rent increases, and displacement this winter. That's why many community members and students showed up to the City Council meeting on November 27th, 2018, to demand they continue the existing rent freeze and include just cause for eviction into their new plan for tenant protections, which at the moment is essentially useless.
This current ordinance that's being discussed has some potential, but a 15.5% increase over 2 years is crazy. If you do the math with compound interest, it works out to be 48% over 4 years. That is status quo.
The rent freeze will expire in December. If we don't keep the rent freeze, which will keep more people in their homes than this new proposal, more people are at risk of becoming homeless in the wintertime. And we've already seen several members of our houseless community get harassed for sleeping outside, or even worse, die on the streets.
I just don't see how we can have a mayor that we voted for who's on city council who has a job with the Barrington Law Office or whatever, who's paid to defend realtors, real estates, and his decision on Tuesday to not put the rent freeze issue on the council agenda and to rerun his own version of a rent cap was just shocking. And I don't know how he hasn't been brought up on conflict of interest charges and had his law license looked at. There's 2 employers in Santa Cruz. It's the university and it's the city. And if those people can't afford to live in the city, who is he helping with his job?